Hey guys, Lazy Developer from Smily Pirates is here, and today I'm going to show you how you can create an array of object and store information there from users and display it on your Android applications in Android Studio. So this is an example. I created this appointment app where you can see the uh, details about appointments. Currently there is a name, time, and about the appointment. You can add a new appointment like this. So now let's add a name. So I'm going to call this Mr. Joker. Time would be 3. About is comedy. So now I'm done. I'm going to submit it, and here you can see the latest array of object added to the home page. So this is what I'll be doing. So let's get started with Android Studio. So we are going to focus on the front end stuff first. So let's get started. I'm going to rename this default name, and this is a default project, empty project. So I'm going to call this home refactor, and let's make sure that the name is changed here on the main activity. Okay, so now let's change the background color, which would be here, and the background is going to be a blue color, and I'm going to make this my title. So let's go ahead and change the font size to something like 20, bold, and I'm going to call this Smily Pirates front desk. Let's add a button. Make sure to put those angles around, because or else it's gonna be in weird positions when it's in your phone. So the text is going to be add, and I'm going to place it right underneath this. And now I'm going to add a list view. You go to legacy and you can drag it up here. Right now it's not constrained, so let's go ahead and do that. So now we're going to add a unique ID for the items we're going to use. So let's go ahead and do that. So for the list view, I'm going to have show appointments as an ID, and make sure to refactor. And as for the add button, I'm going to change the ID to add button. Press enter, refactor, and yes, we don't have to worry about this because we are not going to use it. So let's go ahead and create add button, add XML file for the where user can input stuff. So I'm just going to copy this and make sure I'm on the layout folder, and I'm going to add. Okay, so here now I'm on the add.xml file. I'm going to change this. Let's call this add appointment. Okay, we don't need the list views here, so I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to change this to back button, and let's change the ID to back button. So here when you're refactoring, make sure the scope is the current file. If you put it project file, it's going to change the ID of the home XML file too. So be careful when you're refactoring a copied stuff. So now the problem is fixed. Let me double check to make sure that the ID for add button is add button and ID for back button is back button. Okay, cool. So now I'm just going to add this anything. I'm just supposed to change the text, not the ID. So I'm just going to copy and paste it 3 times. Okay, then you put more space in between. Okay, and keep putting it in the wrong spot. Okay, and it's going to be about. Alright, so now we're going to put plain text. This is where user can input stuff. So let's take care of the constraint first. Okay, copy and paste. Let's take care of the ID. Actually, let's keep it, and the ID is going to be input name refactor input time. It takes time to load stuff, so give it some time. So input about for the third input. Okay, now press enter, refactor, and okay. Alright, so I'm going to put about, and here it's going to be time. Okay, now we need a submit button, so I'm just going to copy these and paste it here, call it submit. I need to change the ID to submit button, and refactor. Okay, so now we are done with the front end stuff. So now we're going to add functionalities to the buttons. So first we did was copy this main activity file and paste it here. Let me show you. You just type add. I'm just going to put extra d. So this is how it should look like at first. So make sure to change this set content view from home to add. And then what you're going to do is go to android manifest.xml. You can go right here. This is the first folder. You go click on this, and here you add activity. So you just type activity, and here you can put add with the 3D and then close it like this. And then that's how you will be able to use this add file. So I'm just going to delete this because I already have add file. So that's how you can add the add file working. So now the next thing is to make the add button work. So first thing we're going to do is create a variable of button type. You have to import the button first, and then you can create a private variable called add button, and then you assign the add button to the correct item from the XML file. So you go to home page and you see the add button. Add button has the ID of add button, so that's why I put add button here. So that's how you assign, and then you can trigger a function when the button is clicked. So you type add button dot set click listener, set on click listener, and then new view on click listener, and then you create a function that's going to be triggered when the button is clicked. So that's why we have an on click function, and in this function we're going to change the page from home page to add page. So that's why we call this home to add function, and here this is a public void type function called home to add, and we create an intent variable, type of intent variable that allows us to change from to the next class. So we create intent equal new intent. This is the first parameter, and we declare the name of the next class, which is Java. And when we call the add.java file, the first thing it's going to do is render this set content view to add.xml. So that's how we will be able to change the page. And the next thing we're going to do is work on the back button in the back button and the submit button from the add.xml file. So let's go ahead and do that. So first we declare the back button, and then it's the same procedures. You just find the ID with the correct name and create a set on click listener and trigger a function when the button is clicked. Keep in mind it takes a little bit of time to correct this. Until then it's going to show error message, so just be patient for a moment. Alright, so before we move to submit button, I'm going to show you that add to home function, which is basically the same copied version, but instead of calling the add class, I'm going to call the main activity class. That means when this function is called, I'm going to go back to the home page. So let's move to the submit button. Alright, so now we are going to store the user's input. So all of these inputs from users is going to be stored in the variable. So first thing we're going to do is declare those edit texts. So create a variable of edit text type. So let's go ahead, edit text. We're going to need these three of these. So let's go ahead and let's call this input name, input time, input about. Okay, so now we are going to store the exact inputs. So we're going to use the ID. Let's go ahead, let's go to the save button on click event. Ready? So let's go ahead, equal find view by ID. So let's go ahead and do this. It's called find view by ID r.id dot here input name. Okay, so let's do this 3 times. I'm going to call this time and we're going to call this about. Same goes with here, time, about. Okay, so now we have access to the button. Now we're going to store this, it's not button, it's actually edit text. Now we have access to the edit text item. Now we're going to store the string. So first we're going to create a regular string variable and we're going to store it. So it's going to be input name dot get text dot to string. So this will allow us to store the string variable. Let's repeat this 2 times. Copy. Let's call this time, about. Okay, let's just, we have to change the name. Okay, so let's create a save function that's going to store this information, this variable. So let's call this off. Let's create another function called public void save data, and it's going to have 3 types of strings: string name, string time, string about. Okay, and now we are just going to print those variables at the moment to see that it's working. So we're going to system.out.println bracket A. First we're going to write the word smiley for a reason. I'll show you in a bit. Just leave it. That's how we're going to store the information. So let's test out our product. It should be working. So the plan is to just navigate. Hold on, let me make sure the name is correct, and let's call this function. So when the submit button is pressed, we are going to get the user's information and store it in the variable. And now we're going to call the save functions and send these variables to this function, just like that. Oh, I put the capital letter instead of lowercase. That's bad. Okay, so now we call the save data function, send those variables, and for now we are just going to print out these variables to see if it's working perfectly. So let's go ahead and press the run button, and I'm going to switch to my phone. In order to see the output, you have to go to the logcat from here, and it's going to print bunch of random stuff for the compilers, but we only want to see the output of what we want to see. So that's why we're going to first type this part in the search bar. So here you just, now you can see all those random stuff, and we're going to put the smiley, and when the submit button is pressed, we're going to see the output. So here is our app, and let's press the add button. It successfully moved us to the next page, which is the add page. And let's go back, and the back button is working fine too. Let's go back to the add page, and let's input something. I'm going to type, let's say, south source of information, something random from the auto keyboard. Let's add a time, 12:30, about something random from the auto keyboard. Let's press the submit button. Here you can see the output. So we can only see the output with the word smiley, and now we can see the name. Name is the random auto keyboard typing, which is source of information. Time is 12:30, and about is I have no student loans, random stuff. But you can see that everything is working perfectly. So let's move to the next section, which is to create an array of object, and we're going to store these variables in the array of object, and then we're going to display it. So we have to create an object before we create an array of object. So I'm going to create a Java file that's going to work as a array, as an object. It's basically an object class. So select Java class, and I'm going to call this appointment info, and it's going to be class type, and here it is. So the first thing is to create variables, and it's going to be string types. I'm going to need 3 of these, so I'm just gonna copy these, and the first one is going to be name, second one is time, third one is going to be called about. Okay, now we are going to create a constructor, so I'm going to call this public and it's going to have the same name as the class appointment info, and it's going to have 3 parameters. Let's see. This is a different way I write things, so don't mind me. And basically when you call this constructor, you're basically assigning these values to these variables. That's all there it is. Okay, so that's pretty much what you have to do for the constructor, for the object file appointment Java. Now you can use this object anywhere you like. So now we are ready to get started with the array list. So let's call this array list, and the type of object, the type of this array list will be appointment info. So let's call this appointment info, and I'm going to call this info, and we have to import the array list. So let's try to use the shortcut. So now press Alt Enter, import class, and here it is. It's now imported. Okay, so we have created the array list of array of object called info. Now we are going to add this to the save function. So we are just going to call info.add bracket new appointment info, and in this bracket we are going to send the name, time, about. That's all there it is. And now this array has been added, this information is added to the array list. Now the problem is that when you change the file, it's going to erase everything, like everything will go back to default. So one way to fix this problem is to save this array in your machine. So that's where we're going to use the shared preferences and JSON to make this array into a string. So let's get started with that. Alright, so we're going to go to the save data function, and we're going to create a shared preference variable of shared preference type. So let's go ahead, and here is the shared preferences, and I'm going to create a variable shared preferences equal get application context is what you need dot get shared preferences. And now the first one is going to be a name, and it's a type of object that you're going to save in your local machine. I'm going to call this data, comma, and you have to put mod private. And now we're going to edit this data object. So that's why we're going to use shared preferences dot editor. This will allow us to edit the data, and it's going to be called editor equal shared preferences dot edit. Okay, this will allow us to edit the data object. And now we added the array, and now we are going to create a JSON. So first we have to include JSON. So let's go ahead and type this out. JSON equal new JSON. And you can see that there is an error because we have to import it. So let's go ahead and try to import. And this one is a little bit powerful, that's why you have to manually type this out. Import, it's going to be com.google.json.json. and we have to import another thing, which is import com.google.json.reflect.type token. Okay, so this is not working because this is a special type. So in order to fix it, we have to go to a build.gradles file, and you can find this over here, and you have to pick the second one where it's module app, and here you can see that you have to include an implementation for the Gradle, for the JSON. So let's go ahead and do that. Implementation, and you don't need the parentheses, put quotation and type google.code.json dot this one is going to be colon, and then type JSON and another colon. Now you're going to type the version. So for me it's 2.8.9, and that's it. So now the final thing to do is to go to file, and you have to sync project with Gradle files. Click on this and wait for a moment. Okay, so now the Gradle file is synced successfully. Now you can see that the error is gone. So let's continue with our JSON stuff. So now we have a JSON variable. Now I'm going to create a string variable called JSON, where it's going to store the array as a JSON file. So let's go ahead and type JSON.toJSON, and I'm going to send the info array. Okay, so now this JSON file is converted the array into JSON format. So now I'm going to call the editor.putString, and the first one is going to be called tracker. This is the name of this JSON file, and it's going to be JSON type. So now I'm going to just call editor.apply to apply these changes, and now I am going to call the add to home, because after pressing the submit button you want to save the information and you want to go back to the home page. So yes, that's how we do it. And we also have to create a load function, because you know that whenever you open a page it's going to reset everything. So we want to read the saved data from the machine and store it in the info array. So let's go ahead and create a function called load data, and it's going to be private void load data. Okay, so it's going to be similar. I'm going to need to call these shared preferences. You can just copy and paste, because we want to use the same object. And now we also need to use JSON to convert this JSON into array. So copy and paste this again, and now you're going to create a variable string JSON equal shared preferences dot get string, and you remember it's saved as tracker, so I'm going to look for the tracker, and then the second parameter is going to be no. So this will allow us to get the array that is saved as a JSON file. So now I'm going to use the type function. Type equal new type token. It's going to be ArrayList, and the second one is going to be appointment info, and now you're going to put a bracket and this, and then you type get type. You have to import these, so let's go ahead and do that. Alt enter, import class, and boom, you're done. So now I'm going, this type function is holding the array list of what kind of type. So now I'm going to have stored the JSON file into the info array. So info equal JSON dot from JSON bracketed JSON type. Okay, so now we have to check if the info is empty or null. If it is empty, then we are just going to create a new array list for info. So let's go ahead and do that, or else we're going to get error. So it's going to be info equal null. If that's the case, then we're going to have info equal new array list, just like that. Okay, so we are done, and I'm just going to call the load function at the beginning. So let's go ahead and do that. Load function, it's going to be called as soon as this page is rendered, just like that. And for now, I just want to make sure that our array is successfully being saved in the machine, and we can load the data from the machine. So let's go ahead and create a for loop to make sure that we can see the array is working. I mean, our save functionality is working. So this is just a basic for loop where I'm going to see that I'm just going to paste it like this. So this is just where this is just gonna print out. I'm going to erase this because we don't need this. Okay, so let's have a look at our cell phone and see if this works out or not. So we are at the home page. Let's go ahead and add new stuff. So let's call this New York. Something random. Let's submit. Let's add another city. Let's call this LA. Let's call this another city. I'm going to call this not a city, but whatever. Okay, let's go ahead and check the output to see if this works. If I can successfully save the data in my phone and retrieve the data from my phone. So, alright, so as you can see in the output, we have New York, LA, and Dubai outputted when I try to open the add.java file for the first time. And I can successfully retrieve the information from the machine and send the information to the machine to save. So we are done with the add.java section. Now we have to display this information to the app. So we are gonna need the load data function because it's basically the same thing. So I'm just going to copy this and main function right below the home to add, and here it is. Now we just have to call this. Oh, I haven't declared the array, so let's go ahead and declare it. Just copy and paste it like normal. Okay, so this should take care of the error. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on the actual section. So first we are going to need a ListView variable, so let's go ahead and do that. Private ListView, and we're going to call this show appointments. Let's call this show appointment list. Okay, so in the loading function, I'm going to have to call the loading function at first. So where is it? Here, right after we render the home.xml, I'm going to call the load function. So once we have all, once we load the array to the mesh application, we can check if the info is empty or not. If the info is not empty, then we are going to add this array to the list view. So let's go ahead and do that. So here we are going to use the show appointment list equal find view by id r.id. Let's go ahead and where is it? Homepage, list view, show appointments. Okay. Alright, so now we have the list view. Now we are going to use array adapter. This is a different type of array that allows us to store, like display the array into the list view. Alright, so before we get started with the array adapter, we have to look at the list view first, because for each index you can only insert one item, but we want to insert 3 items for each index: name, time, and the about. So, but you can directly put 3 items for each index, so that's where array adapter comes into play. But first we need a whole placeholder for 3 items. So we are going to create a new file called xml. I'm going to call this file appointment detail. Okay, so here it is. So we're going to have 3 text views. Oh crap, this looks a little bit weird. Well, I'm just going to copy and paste it. So here we have 3 items. One is we have 3 text views. One is for the name, the second one is for the time, and the third one is for the text view. And make sure that the height is wrap content, so it's going to only use the height based on the items. So that's how we create the placeholder for 3 items. Now we are only going to create this place. We are only going to insert this placeholder into the list view. Okay, so now we are ready to use array adapter. So let's go ahead and work on that. So after we get the ID for list view, I'm going to call the array adapter. So here it is, array adapter, and the type is going to be the object, which is appointment info, and we are going to call this adapter equal new array adapter. Type is going to be appointment info, and then oh, it's in the wrong place, it's going to be here. And as in the parentheses, we are going to have this in the first parameter, and we're going to have the placeholder, which is the appointment details.xml. So let's go ahead and type r.layout.appointment detail. There it is. And the third parameter is going to be the array of object, which is the info. So that's how the first line is going to look like. And this is a function, so let's go ahead and put this. And the first thing we're going to do is trigger a function. So first we have gonna have override, and then we are going to have public function, which is a view type, and it's going to be called get view, and it's going to have the first parameter is going to be int position, second parameter is going to be view convert, and the third parameter is going to be view group parent. Okay, so now we are going to have to return something. Return convert view. Okay, this is the final thing. Let's go ahead and work on the actual part of this function. So first we're going to check if the convert view is empty. If it is, then we are going to assign this stuff. So the first thing we're going to assign is the inflator, which is going to be a layout inflator. Okay, layout inflator dot from get context. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to do when convert view is null, and the second thing is convert view equal inflator dot inflate bracket r dot layout dot appointment detail parent, and the last parameter is going to be false. Okay, that's the end of the if statement. Let's go ahead what's going to happen after the if statement, which is we're going to create appointment info item equal get item position. So now we're going to create variables. Now we are going to display the, where is it? Now we are going to display the items like name, time, and about in these elements. So let's go ahead and get those elements. So I'm going to take this. So let's go ahead and create a variable of text view. Display name equal convert view dot find view by id r dot id dot display name. Okay, let's go ahead and do this two times, and let's call this display time, and let's call this display about. Okay, so now we're going to set the text. So let's go ahead and do that. Display name dot set text name plus actually item dot name. So this is what we are going to display. First we have to put the name and the item dot name. Okay, let's copy this 3 times. Item dot time, item dot, what do you call this, about. Okay, all right, so basically we are just getting the UI elements and setting their text to the correct items from the info array. Okay, and now we just return the convert view, and that's it. And after we finish this array adapter, like here, it's the end of array adapter function. Now we are going to use the show appointment.list set adapter. That's it. Now if we run the application, let's go ahead and do that. We will be able to see this information. So here you can see that we have all the information we try to add. First one was New York, the next one is LA, and the last one is Dubai, and it's in the list view. So let's try to add a new one. Let's call this London. Time is going to be 3. About is going to be UK. Let's submit it, and here it is. London is here. So that's how you can display an array of objects to the list view in Android Studio. I hope this was helpful. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.